Hello and welcome to Art Matters, the show where we discuss Portsmouth's local art scene and showcase the creative community. As always, Claire is undertaking a live doodle. Let's start discussing everything art. So, Terence Carvalho, thank you for joining me on these wonderful blue sofas.
I do like these sofas.
They are
amazing, nice sofas.
So, just getting straight into it, you've sort of been part of the creative sector and small business sector for some time, and I know that now you work in digital, but over the years you've kind of grown up here. I just, if you could start off with just telling me a little bit about yourself, where you kind of manoeuvred your young life and a little bit about where you've got to now, and we'll pick out the bones of the art and creative stuff in the middle. Does that sound good?
Yep, of course. So I'm Portsmouth born and bred. Lived here my whole life, which is 32 years now. And in that time, started my career in hospitality management for 15 years. In that time, run a very successful restaurant, which is just down the road. And before that, 5 years at the King's Theatre, which just down Albert Road, which is one of the biggest event spaces we have in the city. Funny enough, yesterday was the architect's birthday. Obviously, he died a very long time ago, but it's a significant date for most theatres out there because he was an icon. Frank Matcham. He built, I think, over 100 theatres in the UK. I think only 25 exist now because they've slowly sort of dwindled off. But to have such an iconic building in our city, obviously, was such a pleasure to be there for 5 years. I was there for 6 pantomimes. Obviously, Panto's coming up now. I definitely don't miss Panto. And then I made the decision sort of over COVID that it was time to get out of that sort of sector and had the opportunity to go into digital marketing. So, can use the business knowledge that I've gained over the years and input that into marketing now.
Amazing. So you've grown up in Portsmouth and you were educated in Portsmouth.
Yep.
So what was your sort of young education? How did that sort of lead you into the kind of, let's call it kind of the entertainment sector as much as art sector?
Complete luck, to be honest. In terms of art, my dad and my sister are incredible artists, like amazing. The illustrations they can do are unbelievable. Even my mum is quite artistic as well in terms of her photography. I'm the one in the family who's got no artistic flair whatsoever, but I'm the one who's worked in the artistic and the arts and culture industry, which is quite ironic. So it's always been in the background, but it's not something which I've ever focused on. And then when I got the opportunity sort of to go into the King's Theatre, that's where the creativity sort of went. I can look at something and go, I want it to look like this, or I want it to be able to look really good, but in terms of actually me physically doing it, that's when it all falls apart. So I've had to work with artists, with the students that worked under me. They obviously were at Portsmouth University, so they were using the skills that they had gained. Work with illustrators to put together programs, to put together merchandise counters, even deciding what sort of flashy wands we should sell for local shows. So having to use their experiences to be able to bolster up the profile of the city.
I love that. It's kind of it's an additional skill set just outside of directly creating the art itself. So what would you advise, like coming from that perspective, adding those additional bits of information to the art-based sort of performance or to illustrators, what would you suggest that they could do to sort of push their own agenda, I suppose, to kind of get themselves out there or to kind of take another step for themselves?
I think just try to get involved as much as you can, and sometimes that does mean having to throw yourself in as a volunteer potentially, because that does open doors. Just being in the room and being able to have a voice in certain rooms is very difficult to do unless you go in there with the nicest intentions in the world. So if you go in there as a volunteer to a theatre or an art space or a gallery, it's very rare they're going to turn you down, as opposed to you chucking in your CV and applying for a paid role, because that role may not exist. But if you're there as a volunteer, it doesn't cost the organisation anything. You don't know where that volunteer role could eventually take you. It could take you to a paid position either at that place or build your portfolio and then go to another completely different enterprise entirely. So I would say try to get involved as much as you can, meet the right people, make the right connections, and then build from there.
Making the right connections. I think that's something that you do really well. I mean, obviously me and Claire you've kind of encountered us on the travels, as it were, many times, and I think that's how we've got to know each other. would you say that, or what would you, another sort of, I'm trying to sort of tease out the things I know that you're amazing at. And so one of those things I think is networking. I think you're really, you've shown that, you're everywhere, you do loads of great work. And for organisations or charitable organisations, or perhaps someone starting out in their career, have you got any advice on how they might go about that kind of networking and sort of maybe getting something valuable out of what they're doing?
Yeah. I think when you're younger, it's difficult because if I look back now, when I was 18, 19, having to go into a room and network would just been impossible. I would definitely have been that person in the corner of the room who wouldn't know how to speak to people, how to engage with anyone. And I think that comes with experience and with confidence. But I would say just make sure you've got the right sort of mentors when you are building up your career, having those right people there who can point you in the right direction, to point you to the right people to speak to, because there can be the wrong people to speak to, unfortunately. There are those people in the world. But if you stick to the right people, they'll open doors for you. And obviously, the more you do for them as well, and showing up and caring as well, it's a reciprocal relationship. You can open doors for each other, and hopefully, whatever you're doing, blossom together.
That's great advice. I mean, I would echo the same sort of thing. Joining up both of those things, like volunteering and networking, to me is almost the same thing. It's sort of giving without receiving, and then when the opportunity arises, you're in the right place, and because you've gravitated to what you do best. So you've travelled across the city. You've been in the charity sector. And in your new role now at Delivered Social, you've chatted to I'd call it like the helping community, but also the art-based community. Then you've kind of got some more sharp-end business stuff.
Yeah.
And we've just come out of a pandemic, and we're facing probably the most challenging economic environment we've all faced as adults or younger people. What would you say you're seeing in that environment? What do you think the challenges are at the moment?
I think you've got sort of three options there, or three things which I'm seeing. It's either everyone's sort of battening the hatches and going, yep, let's ignore it and let's wait till next year. Two, they're just pausing all activity. Or three, they're really going for it and realising that this isn't like COVID. There is no furlough pay. There is no grants coming out. There's no help from the government. Cost of living is happening. Everything's going up. Prices going up. Fuel's going up. It will impact everyone in the city. If you do pause activity like we did over COVID, there is no grants. There's nothing to get you through this. You have to put the effort in to be able to keep going as a business. So from our point of view, it's going in and helping those businesses to understand, if you do pause this time, you will go bust. There is no option. You're going to have to keep paying the bills. So you pausing things is not going to get you more money in your business. No. So it's making sure that you're still out there, you're still doing everything you can. So when those precious pennies are out there, you've got a fighting chance to get them.
And that's sort of full circle, isn't it? Wrapped round to that kind of getting yourself out there, not sort of being shy to kind of go and make introductions. Or, one of the things I've observed as well for smaller businesses especially is they don't make great offers. They don't make enough of them. And therefore their kind of pipeline for the future is diminished. Obviously you're now working in social media, and I think so much of the world that we live in relies on social media. It used to be that there was a high street. Now there's a digital high street. What have you got any, I suppose, advice for people that we're all, if you're not in digital, I'm assuming you're probably not in business. So have you got any sort of tips or any sort of advice on what people might be able to do in that sort of space? Even if they're beginners, or even if they've got more experience.
I think we're quite lucky in the sense where everybody has some kind of social media presence, but it's obviously catering that to the right audience. What you might post on Facebook is not necessarily what you would post on LinkedIn. They're two completely different platforms, but at the same time, they're both social networks. The point of them is to network with people. Obviously, Facebook, when that came out, it was all about adding your friends, family members you never spoke to, all that sort of stuff. And then it's grown and got massive. And then other platforms come in, Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And they're all different in terms of the audiences you speak to. The same language you'll use on one platform will not be the same as you use on another. But I think also what you need to be able to do is, if you have a really good digital presence, you have to be able to then show up to events and be that person. You can't be so corporate on a certain platform, turn up to an event and be that same way, because people just won't speak to you. You know, if I was posting everything that we did as Deliver Social and all the work we do as a business, how we get money coming in, there would be nothing to talk about in terms of when I actually approach people. You know, I'm more interested in what they're doing in the city, why they're helping out the businesses they're helping out, what they're doing, what they're bringing into themselves, and you have to have a talking point. And I think if you can hide behind social media quite easily, and I think some people do, you still have to go into the room. You're still going to eventually meet these people, and you have to back up what you're putting on social media. And vice versa. We meet a lot of businesses today who may have a website, but they don't have a digital presence. They don't have a decent Facebook page. They don't have a LinkedIn presence. And it's like when the times do get tough and people are now on their phones all the time and they're on their laptops, you know, God knows how long, you have to be there. You even if you're not showing up in the room, you have to have some sort of social presence, because when times do get tough, people are only going to go shopping or go to the places which they see, not the places which are not seen. Because if you're not seen, people just presume you're gone or you've shut down, and that's it. People want to be seen, to be associated with people who are doing good things.
It's good advice, my friend. So what are you actually working on at the moment? For yourself, I mean, assuming I've seen you love your travelling. I know that this is all partly from getting to know you in the real world, but also you're social as well. So it's sort of proof in what you're saying there. I know you love sweets. I know
I do love
absolutely
sweets,
love sweets. So, and obviously you're working really hard networking and helping local businesses, and I've seen you travelling as far and wide as Fareham, Gosport, all around the local areas. So what is it that you're kind of prioritising working on for yourself and working on for your business?
For me, it was always about Portsmouth predominantly. And like I said, Gosport and Fareham, I went to Gosport last week. It was the first time I went to Gosport for about 15 years, which is crazy because it is literally just across the water. It's not far. It's a 5-minute ferry ride. It's not far. And then it's going somewhere which is so close but so completely different in terms of the demographic of people over there, the way they live, the different culture completely. It is quite scary. But for me, it was when I went into Deliver Social, it was trying to use the experience that I've gained from the corporate business world to throw that into marketing, but also to be able to go to businesses and go, well, this is what you should be doing, but actually I've got the proof where I've done it previously as a business. There's a lot of digital marketing agencies out there who do great work, but there isn't anybody my age who's got 15 years management experience, you know, because I started off when I was 18, so it was a young role for a manager. So I'm quite lucky I've got that background of managing teams, managing a business, managing profit and loss, like managing those aspects which business owners, when they are looking at social media, they may be, you know, a bit scared of the thought of social media, but then also I can jump in and go, well, actually, what are the other bits you're doing? What are the other challenges you're having in the business? What staff members are you having trouble with? What areas can you not see? And I think the hardest thing is when I stepped away from hospitality, I was saying I was never going to go back into it. One of the first inquiries we had was a new restaurant which was opening up, and we built a website for them. You know, it looked great, but actually the main part of it was, cool, how do I get this place busy? What do I do? And it was using the context that I had, passed them on. You know, we got them really good press coverage. We got them in the Portsmouth News. We're hoping to get them even further out there. Hints and tips for social media based on the stuff that we've done previously. And it was offering that support not for what they're actually paying for, if that makes sense, because they paid for a website, but actually what they got was the experience from myself being in that same industry.
And that's that personal connection you talk about, isn't it? I think that having building collaborations, I think there's many jargonistic words overused, and I think collaborating is one of those words. Personally, I think it makes it sound like the word strategy. It makes it sound a little bit more than it really is. You know, for me, collaborating is getting to know somebody properly, understanding what it is they actually need, not what they're telling you to your face. And you wouldn't know that unless you genuinely go and engage with them. You spend time with them outside of, like you're saying, you know, they say this, they say that, but what they don't say, and what they don't say is how you end up collaborating. And I think that's where you provide really great value.
And I think until you've got that trust, they may not open up to you, because obviously this is their business. They don't want to give up too much if they don't trust you. They don't want to tell you what's going bad. You know, they'll tell you what needs to be fixed, but obviously there's underlying issues which are going on. Until you've got that trust with somebody, and you've got to build trust, you can't just, it doesn't just happen.
And it's interesting as well because and I think this happens on two sides of the coin. I think in the personal world, people will look at social media and often there's this sort of notion that people only share that is good in their life. So if you're only looking at social media, all you see is this wall of positivity. And I think it's the same for business.
Yep.
You know, I think that often, you know, lots of smaller businesses especially, you know, they are living, you know, with a month or two in the future. You know, their income streams are challenging, their relationships are falling apart and rebuilding so quickly. You know, their cash flow is insanely difficult. But what you see, everyone else sees, is this wall. And we suffer from that, I think, at the size that we are. Hence why we're everywhere all the time. Because, you know, we appreciate that momentum is important, that, like you say, being out there is important. And at the same time, I think what I really love about us as a team, and also I think, you know, I'd include you in that, Terence, and a few others that are in our kind of closer bubble, I would say. You know, you are honest about what's going on. You know, you do talk, and I think then, you know, I always think about when people win awards and they say thanks to my team. You know, I've often pondered how long that team took to build, and my experience of having built teams myself is it does take time. You know, that's not going to happen overnight. You have to expect it to take a little while, so you might as well get started and building that team around you. So should we just have a look at what Claire's been doing? Are we able to see it in the...
so there you go.
So do you want to describe it?
It's got another little alien monster that just appeared, and I was listening to you talk about what you wanted to do in your goals and stuff. So that's in the stars. And then
Portsmouth symbol.
The Portsmouth crest, and then our ship of adventures, and talking about teams and how we're all in the same boat, and also trust. I mentioned about GLAM connections, so galleries, libraries, archives, museums, working with all different cultural organisations across Portsmouth, and how we can all link up, building that trust, and that's little bird heart here. Yeah.
I love the way you're bringing everyone together in a ship.
Yeah,
Noah's
always.
Ark. Or the Gospel Ferry.
Noah's Ark. That's very telling, mate. We better get on quick, haven't we? Especially the rain has been awful, isn't it, lately? It's
not
been
good.
absolutely awful. In terms of like your own personal achievements and your own personal life, and once again, you know, I'm not completely sure where this is going, but I think I feel like, you know, to be successful and an independent business, running your own thing, you need to keep your own mindset really strong, which means that you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you've got your own kind of personal routines or things that you do personally to kind of support your own.
It's a tough one because I don't think there's any routines I do. I'm pretty good at putting personal and business aside. It's something which I always struggled with. I could never switch off before, and I think that was just purely because the industry I was in, you just couldn't switch off. You didn't have the staff, you didn't have the labour to be able to go, right, I can switch off, leave it to somebody else. You had to constantly, you were almost 24/7 on call. Whereas now I can have that balance. You know, I don't work weekends anymore. I've never had weekends off ever, you know, since school. So for the first 6 months I had weekends off, so now I can have chill time. I'm not going to lie, I do open up the laptop every now and then. I do, you know, I can't stand, my inbox is always on 0. I can't stand closing it with it off. It gives me anxiety seeing it on, like, when you look at people's screens, it's got like 1,000 emails.
Don't look at my laptop.
Yeah, I know, and I've got friends who do the same. Like, I don't know how do you do that? How do you literally just put down and go home? I couldn't do it. So for me, it's having that differentiation, but also, as much as I do post on social media stuff, there's a lot of things I do keep back for me. There's a lot of stuff which is out there because it has to be out there, or because I want to talk about what we're doing, I want to talk about the collaborations we're doing with the city, about the great work we're doing, but then also there's things in my personal life which are me. You know, if anything, my Facebook page is more corporate than my LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is more fun. Then the Facebook page is just there because it has to be. I got Facebook back last month, for the first time in 6 years.
Sorry about that, man. I feel like we influenced you somewhat in there. There's a few people, get on Facebook.
Yeah, but yeah, I had to do it because it's a different audience. But it's all my school friends, college friends, college lecturers who I've got on Facebook. So they're a different audience to the people I speak to now. And the LinkedIn audience is probably the audience now that I speak to. That's probably my main channel. But again, there's certain things which I keep to myself, which are me. And yeah, there is a lot out there, but there's a lot of stuff which people don't know about.
Not your Spider-Man suit, though.
Yeah, that's out there. That's for the world to see.
Yeah,
the
we're trying
suit.
to get you into that, ain't we? Into the Comic-Con Spider-Man thing. Definitely want to.
Kelly at Guildhall said she's up for it. Yeah.
Well, I think that just means you've got to be up for it, and then you're Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
It sounds like a pretty easy gig, though. To be fair, doesn't it? Just have to rock up and just jump around walls. It's not tough.
Spin webs.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, there's worse jobs, isn't there?
There are worse jobs, but at the same time, Spider-Man, man, it's great power, great responsibility, and all that.
Yeah, I don't think the council will see that from the other side of the Guildhall, but yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for being really honest about everything that you've sort of shared there. I mean, there's loads of learning that I'm taking from it, and hopefully that people that are listening are as well. So, thanks, Terence.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate it.